been flat, don't believe the lies of NASA, cause GMOs and chemtrails will kill a nigga faster. Agenda 21, Georgia Guidestones, 501c3, this the land of dry bones. They say the earth's a ball, but I do not see a curve. 8 inches per mile square, but it's flat when I observe. Need to do your research instead of eating what they feed you. They harvesting the organs, yeah, it's crazy how they need you. Of course there is a plot to eradicate the masses, and if you too blind, go ask the Most High for glasses. And these saw
coming with another flat earth video. I told you it's gonna be a series. I'm gonna keep dropping gems, keep bringing out information. I'm probably gonna do a few more of these over the next month or so because it's that important. So my original flat earth video, which was well over an hour long, it went over everything from the moon landing to scriptures to the firmament to sprites to so many different things, and then it ended with 21 questions of flat earth, right? Then I did a video about the experiments that these individuals conducted, and they experimented a lot of different things over the course of 7 years. This will be part 2 to that video. All right, this is going to go into actually specifically addressing gravity, right, and other aspects such as the sun and its rotation, right? Really quickly before we get to the video, I wanted to address gravity, and the way I do that typically is I give a very simple scientific breakdown. It doesn't exist. It's that simple. Gravity claims that it pulls all matter down at the same rate, no matter the weight, the density. It pulls all matter down at the same time. So if you're like on the top of if you're on top of a building and this person weighs 400 pounds and this person weighs 150 pounds and they jump off at the same time, they'll hit the ground at the exact same time. That's what gravity claims. Now, let's address that and some other things as well, because this video is going to show you without a shadow of a doubt that gravity is absolutely false. But real quick, I'll give you an analogy because I'm very scientific, but I'm also simple. And when things are explained to me, I want it to be broken down at the basic level so that I understand it, right? So I try to do that as well, okay? So gravity. It's not gravity, it's relative density. Relative density is the density of an object, right? So you got these clippers here. The density of an object in relation to the atmosphere that's around this object. So I'm in a room, right? There's air, there's oxygen in this room, there's a few other gases in this room, and it's surrounded by 4 walls. This is the environment that surrounds this object, okay? If this object is more dense than the atmosphere around it, it will fall, right? It will fall. If it's less dense than the atmosphere around it, then it will rise. It's that simple. There's no extra super long formulas that need to be conducted or none of that. It's very simple. Science at its essence is a very simple concept, very simple. So with that being said, let's use some examples, okay? If you take an ice cube, if I hold an ice cube in my hand and I let it go, right? That ice cube will fall down. Why? Because it is more dense than the atmosphere that surrounds that ice cube, okay? Now we'll take you back to chemistry class. When you add heat to ice cube and you convert it from its solid form, which is the ice, to its liquid form, which is water, okay? If I had water in and I let it go, it too would fall down. Why? Because it is more dense than the atmosphere that surrounds the water. In fact, water in its liquid form is more dense than the ice in its solid form. Okay, that's just basic chemistry. Okay, now if you add heat, like if I light a lighter and add heat to the water, right, and I convert it from its liquid form, which is water, to its gas form, which is steam, water vapor, whatever you want to call it, what does it do? It rises. It doesn't fall because it is less dense than the atmosphere that surrounds it. It's not about gravity. It is about relative density. Because if gravity would pull all matter down to the earth, or to whatever the source of the gravity is coming from, then everything should fall equally. Solids, liquids, and gases. And if that is also the case, then the gases that are in the upper atmosphere, the nitrogens and oxygens and the carbon monoxides and all of that, it should be poured all the way down. It should be close to the surface, if not at the surface. It just doesn't make sense. When you apply certain laws and theories, right, to something, you have to account for everything, because science has to be measurable, testable, and repeatable. If it is not, if it doesn't meet those three criteria, it is called pseudoscience. And they claim that flat Earth is pseudoscience. However, as you've seen in my previous videos, you can test, you can measure, and you can repeat these exact experiments yourself. That proves it's science. It's not pseudoscience. However, for the globe, all they give us is fake pictures, elaborate, very elaborate, and extensively complicated mathematical formulas, testimonies from experts in their field, and then the word organization that everybody trusts and believes, which is NASA. If you take those away, what do you have? Because you can't prove the globe. You can't prove anything, because everything you see when you go out of your front door and you look around, everything proves flat Earth. Everything you perceive proves flat Earth, but your mind isn't in agreement with that because you've already been told and conditioned to believe that it is a globe, and that is absolutely false. When you're on a plane, look out that window. Look at the horizon. Does the horizon curve or is it flat? You tell me. Right? When you're out on a boat and you're looking out at the beautiful water, right? Look at that water line, that horizon line. Tell me, is it curved or is it flat? Everything you see proves flat Earth, but we don't think that. We don't know that we've been conditioned to think that it's a globe. Okay. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. This is Antarctica. Sorry, we are closed. And let me know what you think in the comments. Shalom.
Gravity is the theory that science considers as the main factor to keep everything in harmony on a spherical planet.
Water does not come off the Earth because it has a central force pulling towards the center of the Earth, which is gravity. It does not exist. According to the experiments, gravity does not exist. From the fundamentals of nature, Plumb and Level overthrow the theory of gravity.
The plumb is an instrument used to gauge verticality. It is of fundamental use in civil construction to guarantee the verticality of the buildings.
This tool we use to get the wall in the right plumb because it cannot be out of plumb because the wall can fall. So this plumb is used for this, to keep it right and steady on the plumb. Neither there nor here, right there in the plumb.
The use of the plumb is the only way to ensure that construction is being erected in vertical alignment. The level is an instrument used to measure inclinations and is fundamental to ensure horizontality. It's used extensively in the areas of civil construction, surveying, photography, and astronomy, among others. The most common model is the bubble.
Any construction has to have level and plumb, because if it gets out of plumb and level, it can fall. That house can fall. This equipment is a system of communicating vessels and is used in the laboratory to demonstrate the behavior of water leveling. In whatever position we place the system, the water that is inside will always search its level. This behavior of the leveling can be proven not only in laboratory, but we can prove this in field experiments in ponds, lakes, and the seas.
This is a micro version of what we find all over the planet: leveled waters.
By verifying that the water remains level, both in micro and macro environments, it's also verified that gravity does not exist, because if this force existed, the waters would follow the curvature of the planet. But then, what forces act to maintain harmony on a non-spherical planet? Researchers from Dakila and the Ziggurats Technology Center have concluded that among the fundamentals of nature, the four main forces that, acting together, hold us firm to the ground are magnetism, density, pressure, and light. The researchers called this set of forces MDPL. Among the four MDPL forces, magnetism, in contrast to what science considers, is one of the strongest forces that act on Earth. It's the main force that keeps everything in balance, from the bonds of an atom to the Earth's magnetic field. One way to study the performance of the magnetic field of bodies is to perform a simple experiment where we transform into mechanical waves the kinetic energy produced by the magnetic field in an object. This can be reproduced by throwing an object into the water. Whatever the shape of the object, the waves produced will always be circular, as they are modulated by the Earth's magnetic field. Note that regardless of the shape of the object, the waves produced in the water will always have circular patterns. This happens because the waves in the water are being modulated by the influence of the Earth's magnetic field.
It does not exist. According to these experiments, gravity does not exist. But going even further, to prove or to sustain the sphericity of the Earth, without people falling, buildings, animals, constructions, the waters especially going off, flying out into space, to justify people stay fixed on the Earth's surface without being thrown off by the spin of the planet, they created a magical force called gravity. But this magical force is torn down by the plumb and level, because the physical behavior of water is to seek leveling. Or is physics wrong too? If the physical behavior of waters, according to our physics, is to seek leveling, how will it fix itself to a ball on a sphere without flying off? Space outside without seeking its level? So these are two contradictory things. And even more, to justify the seasons, they decided to tilt a ball 23 degrees. There is no way to tilt a ball, a sphere. Impossible. Let's see, how could a planet or a ball, a sphere, be tilted and waters not get off? But it has the imaginary axis. The imaginary axis, even if there were a physical axis, what would be inclined is the axis and not the sphere. Any position that places the sphere, there is no way to tilt it but the axis. An imaginary axis. That is an illusion. If it is imaginary, it's an illusion. So it's another contradiction. They created this axis that does not exist to justify the seasons in a sphere, in a globular model. That's not possible. Well, in a sphere we certainly do not live. Because the physical behavior of the waters does not match the reality of the facts. And through the plumb and level, this theory is totally overthrown. extinct. What would Earth be like? The first sight, the Earth is absolutely flat. But this plane goes where? Is it square? Is it a circle?
Looking from above, the impression you have is that the Earth is flat.
Scientists of the past had only the eyes to observe and the reasoning to create possibilities. The older ancients used a model of the flat Earth, square Earth, triangular and geoid. Later, other scientists defined the most suitable model would be spherical, geoid, putting a stake at one point and another at 800 kilometers. But he did not take into account the altitude, had no GPS, had nothing. So, there is really no way how these ideas, with the technology of today, can be considered, because everything we have today overthrows these theories. Any experiment today can prove that the globe doesn't exist. It's impossible.
But then, how can we determine the real shape of the planet? The CTZ researchers collected information on the movement of the sun, the moon, and the stars in different parts of the planet. In this research, which lasted several years, images were recorded by cameras installed in all these places during the day and at night.
We found several differences in the trajectory of the sun. One of the most significant was between Australia and Argentina, which are in the same tropic.
While in Argentina the sun moves at about 180 degrees, in Australia it moves almost 270 degrees, which would be impossible in a spherical Earth model. Another significant example was in the Canary Islands, where a time-lapse of the stars showed a circular movement incompatible with the spherical model of the Earth.
This movement would only be justified if the place were near the poles in a spherical Earth, which is not the case.
We do not understand that with so many discrepancies we have found, and with the technology available today, no researcher, no scientist, no astronomer, no space agency in the world has perceived any of this.
The discrepancy in the comparison of the trajectory of the sun and the stars between the different points, when related to its geographical position in the current world map, allowed to generate a new geographical model of the continents. In this model, the continents present a size and position somewhat different from the current world map.
No, don't give up. Stay in the truth. The Most High sees all the good work you're doing. Yeah, you're right.